Okay, in this video, I want to talk about some practices that came from Moses and that came from Yeshua, and that came from Jews, which also appears in Native American culture and also in African culture and Asian culture as well. Because, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this month is August, and traditionally, what Native Americans and Jews and Africans normally do, and I don't know if Asians do this specifically during August season, because Asians, they'll do it any time of the year, because when they want to appease the Most High God, the Lord of Karma, they do it anytime. They don't just do it during the Elul season, which is said to be when the king is in the field, as they put it from the Jewish perspective. So, what happens is, starting on August 1st, the people in South American cultures, what they'll do is they'll lay out yellow flowers on the ground. Some people will even put a yellow cloth on the ground, and they'll lay out food for the animals, for the birds, the bugs, and the wild animals. And they call it making payments to the land to atone for everything that we take away from it as human beings, as just a natural part of having families and building homes and just living. Okay. So this is their payments to the land, where they just feed the animals, they feed the birds, they just leave out food and yellow flowers, sometimes yellow cloth or yellow confetti. And so that's the Pachamama tradition for appeasing Mother Earth, because as we know, Mother Earth blesses us with wonderful, delicious foods and rain and cool, clean waters to swim and bathe in. But Mother Earth can also crush and destroy in nature and also in society, because that's part of the circle of life. That's part of what keeps nutrients and keeps life forms circulating and surviving. So the cycles of watering and fertilizing versus the cycles of dormancy or destruction. So that's how it's approached from the South American Pachamama ritual to appease Mother Earth. And with me personally, I don't have a whole lot of money to be spending on buying no flowers to lay out on the ground. So what I did was I got like a little $1.50 pack of wildflower seeds, and my wildflower seeds sprouted, and some of them actually came out yellow. So I don't have to lay out any yellow flowers, because in my random mix of wildflower seeds, I got a couple yellow ones. So I lucked out there. Now I'm going to get into, I'm going to talk about the Asian side of this culture. And with Asians, when they want to appease the Lord of Karma, they normally, because they're a very patriarchal society, they call it appeasing the male Lord of Karma. And they don't call it appeasing Mother Earth. So what they'll do is they'll feed wild animals, they'll feed cows special treats, they'll feed ants, they'll feed fish, especially fish. They'll feed all kinds of stuff. Bread, vegetables, spinach, all kind of stuff. They'll give gifts to the creatures of the land, as a way of trying to atone for birthing children, living, eating off the land, and taking from it and building homes. And their word for the Lord of Karma is Lord Shani. And normally when they want to appease the Lord of Karma, they wear red, just like Moses did, or they wear red like Yeshua, like Christ did when he was crucified. Yeshua, instead of sacrificing some innocent person, or instead of giving food as a sacrifice, Yeshua, he gave of himself and shed his own blood as a payment to atone for karma and to give back to the land, like the land was watered with his own blood. He gave himself, and that's something a lot of us are not, of course, are not comfortable with doing, of giving of ourself and our own life's blood to pay the land. But Christ, he did that. Yeshua, he did it, and he did it while wearing red. And Moses, he wore red. The tribe of Levi of Israel, they wore red because their culture is built and structured around with a strong focus on appeasing the Lord of Karma. A lot of their laws, a lot of their customs and traditions, it's structured to try to give their people the highest and the best amount of favor from the Lord of Karma, even right down to the Shemitah year laws, where in the Shemitah year, you're supposed to forgive all people's debts. You're supposed to forgive your own people's debts and also forgive the debts of the people who you oppressed. And you're also supposed to let the land rest. You can maybe compost the land a little bit before the Shemitah year begins, but outside of composting, you're not supposed to be working the land or growing any food on it. This is a time to give back to the land instead of taking from it. So this is one of the ways that, in wearing red while committing practices with intent to try to atone for your people's karma and trying to gain your people's highest favor with the Lord of Karma. This is what Judaism was built around. Like in Native American culture and Asian culture, especially in Asian culture, their practices for appeasing the Lord of Karma is much, much closer to what you see in the Hebrew traditions, even right down to the red robes on Moses, the tribe of Levi, and Christ, who was named Yeshua. Their culture, it more closely mirrors the Asian practice for appeasing the Lord of Karma. And like Israel, they really tried, and their tribes just kind of didn't mentally get it. They had all these great hopes, great aspirations, these great hopes that their people would be the ones to master the art of living a lifestyle that's dedicated to appeasing the Lord of Karma and having the highest favor with him. And the overwhelming majority of their people just fell short and didn't make the cut. And of course, Asians, they're not dedicated on that level. They got like 200 different deities they be working with, and they don't commit to work with the Lord of Karma on that level. Not to the extent that the Jews seem to be specializing in. I'll just put it like that. So, and with Africans, I really don't know of anything from any African culture with a focus on that. I don't know if any ethnic group of Black people ever even tried, to be honest with you, so I can't speak on it. Maybe there might be. Like the Hebrew culture is the only Black culture I know of that did this. Literally the only one. And they're, the level of seriousness is, it's debatable, and the whole world knows it. So outside of Hebrews, I don't think any other group of Black people has been that dedicated to such a large scale endeavor, because it's, it's manageable on a personal individual level. But when you're trying to get a whole tribe or 12 tribes or a whole nation to have their whole way of life built around that, it just ends in gross failure a lot of time, especially when you got people intermarrying with women who not only don't mentally comprehend that, they don't fucking care about that, and they're raising your kids. So I understand what the goal was. I can see it clearly, even right down to the Saturday Sabbath, which was the original. That Saturn, that's just the European word for the Lord of Karma. So on those Saturday Shabbats, the tribe of Levi and Moses and Yeshua, they would have been wearing that red and doing their communion and appeasement and, atoning for taking away from the land by doing things like doing zero farming and just letting the land compost, and only if necessary, letting people who don't own land grow food. Like even the laws in the Torah about the law against taking eggs out of a wild bird's nest and eating the eggs and the mother too. It's against the law to eat the eggs of a wild bird and eat the mama too. It's against the law to eat a baby goat and cook it in its mother's milk. There are a lot of different laws. Like if you're waging war on another group of people, you don't touch not one of the trees. You never, ever cut down or destroy a tree when you're at war with another nation. There are laws. And the book of Revelation says, I will destroy them who destroy the earth. So again, further proof that the Jews were trying to build their entire culture and their entire way of life around appeasing the Lord of Karma. They did not make their religion with intent to take over the whole planet. They didn't do this. It's not what people thought. But, it's like, because human beings are the way they are, it's like, unless you explain the Lord of Karma using their words, their language, their culture, or their names, they really don't want to hear shit you got to say. It's got to be their word, their language, their names, or their face on it. And it could be the same exact procedures. It could be the same exact shit. But if it's not their race, their names, and their words and cultures on it, they're like, oh, we don't want to hear that. That's the devil. And that's why so many people hate the Hebrew faith and see anything connected to that as the enemy, because they don't recognize that they're doing the same fucking rituals, just with different words and their race pasted on it. The difference is they're just less committed to appeasing the Lord of Karma. They're less committed to specific changes, and it shows. You can look at the ecosystems and look at how certain cultures tend to be, and the extent to which they're not willing to go to appease the Lord of Karma. It's blatantly obvious. I'll just put it like that. We're like, yeah, they might have cultures, but one culture might not be as committed to that as the other. And the black people of the ancient Hebrew tribes, I don't know of any other tribe on the planet that was equally as committed to training up all of their people on that level. I don't know of anyone who ever did it, because everyone is accountable and susceptible in the system. It's just not everyone is aware of the extent to which they are. And when you have certain people getting online or talking to each other face to face to trash talk this kind of thing literally every day, then it's no surprise to see how effed up life is for most of their people, where they'll trash talk certain practices literally in certain faiths like the Hebrew faith, built for appeasing the Lord of Karma. They'll talk trash about it literally every day. And then you wonder why most of their people are so, the overwhelming majority of them, their life is effed up so bad compared to the rest of the planet. It's like, okay, it's obvious. So anyway, moving on. Let me see. Now I'm going to talk about the African version of appeasing the Lord of Karma, because the continental African, not the Israeli Hebrew, but continental African. Where they differ from all the other cultures in the world is that instead of wearing red when they go to the water, they wear white. They wear white instead of the red. And when they go to a natural body of water, instead of going to a lake or a river, which is perfectly acceptable, they decide that they want to only go to the ocean and not to a lake or a river. And so they wear white, and they'll send a young girl who's a virgin, which in my opinion is probably pretty hard to find, because they do have a lot of pedophiles